All right. So much going on in the world right now. Feels like you need a cheat sheet just to keep up, right? Well, that's what we're doing here today. Deep dive into those global headlines, figure out what matters, why it matters, that whole thing.
Absolutely. Get you up to speed, like starting with India. Tensions with China, always a thing.
Yep.
Well, now India's thinking about buying this crazy powerful radar system from Russia, the Voronezh radar, it's called. And get this thing, its range is bigger than the whole U.S.
Seriously,
Yeah.
that's massive. But why would they, what's the thinking there?
Okay, so picture this. Giant watchful eye in the sky, right? That's basically what this radar is. Can keep an eye on everything happening in Chinese airspace, and that's huge for India right now. Kind of a deterrent, if China's thinking about anything aggressive. Plus, it sends a message.
Oh, for sure. A $4 billion message.
Yep, not messing around. Okay, but shifting gears a bit. Middle East, always a lot happening there, but things with Israel and Syria, man, it's intense. 480 strikes in just 48 hours.
Yeah, that's been all over the news. But honestly, it's hard to follow sometimes. So many players involved.
Right. You've got Israel, obviously, then Syria, but then Hamas and Hezbollah are in the mix, and Iran's got their fingers in there somewhere, too. It's a whole web. But basically, it seems like with the Syrian government falling apart, Israel's kind of taking advantage, going after any threats they see.
And then you've got Russia giving asylum to Assad, the Syrian leader who got ousted. It's like a whole other layer on top of everything.
Yeah, Russia's playing the long game there, still backing Assad, trying to keep their influence in the region. And who knows, maybe Assad ends up back in power someday.
Crazy.
Right.
Talk about a political thriller. Okay, completely different part of the world now. South Korea. Things got really dramatic there. Their former defense minister, he tried to take his own life after being jailed for, get this, trying to impose martial law.
Yeah, talk about a wild ride. It all happened so fast. Accusations of an attempted coup, President Yoon stepping in, martial law declared, then reversed almost immediately. A lot of whiplash.
Wait, back up a sec. Martial law, what does that even mean? I mean, I know it's serious, but...
Basically, it's when the military takes over, runs things. Usually happens in emergencies. Supposed to be temporary. But yeah, even though it was short-lived, it really shook things up in South Korea. People are questioning what's going on, whether they can trust their government. Definitely could have long-lasting effects.
Wow. Intense. And you know who's got something to say about all this? North Korea. Which is super interesting because they usually stay out of South Korea's business. But this time, they're calling President Yoon a puppet.
Yeah, not exactly subtle. Basically, they think Yoon is being controlled by the U.S., and they're not happy about it. Speaks volumes about how tense things are between those two countries, even after all these years.
Okay, so we've got potential power plays in Asia, conflict boiling over in the Middle East, political drama with global implications in South Korea. It's a lot. But stay tuned because we're just getting started.
Exactly. Let's break it all down, see how these things are connected, what it means for the world. It's going to be good. So, things change fast in the world, right? Blink and you miss something. That's why we're here, trying to keep up with it all.
For sure. It's like every day, there's some new headline, some crazy development.
Yeah.
And speaking of crazy, this one just came in, about Israel and Syria. Reports are saying the Israeli Navy wiped out the entire Syrian fleet.
Whoa, hold on now. We got to be careful with this one, right? These reports are coming from Israeli sources, so it could be some bias there, Got to take it with a grain of salt. But if it's true, man, that's a major hit to Syria's military. Israel's really flexing their muscles.
Yeah, no kidding. And, Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, he's been pretty vocal about all this. He's basically saying that the pressure Israel's been putting on, not just with these naval strikes, but with everything they've been doing against Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, all of it, that's what led to the Syrian regime collapsing in the first place.
Wow, so he's connecting all the dots, huh? Basically saying Israel's calling the shots in the region.
Yeah, exactly. It's all connected, right? It's not just these separate things happening. It's this whole chain reaction. And speaking of reactions, let's go back to South Korea for a sec. We talked about the whole martial law thing, the defense minister, but there's another piece to this puzzle, North Korea's reaction.
Oh, right. They usually keep to themselves, don't really comment on what South Korea's doing. But this time, they spoke up, and they did not hold back. Called President Yoon a puppet.
Ouch. Not exactly a friendly term. What do you make of that?
I think it shows how worried they are about this whole situation. They see Yoon as, America's puppet doing their bidding, and that makes them nervous. It's like, even though the Korean War ended ages ago, the tension is still there, simmering just below the surface.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that history matters, These old conflicts, they don't just disappear. They shape how countries act, how they see each other.
Totally. Okay, so we've got this potential arms race kicking off in Asia. The Middle East is, well, the Middle East, always a powder keg. And now South Korea with North Korea adding fuel to the fire. Lots to unpack here.
You said it. But we're going to do it next segment. We're bringing it all together, figuring out what it all means, why we should care. Stick with us. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here. India getting that super radar, Israel and Syria, all the drama in South Korea. Feels like the world's spinning a little faster these days.
It's a lot, right? And here's the thing. All these stories, they might seem separate, but they're really not. They're all pieces of the same puzzle, this big global picture.
Okay, so help us connect the dots then. What's the bigger story here? What does it all mean? And why should we even care?
Well, I think one of the big things is the balance of power is shifting. We're moving away from like this one superpower world where the U.S. calls all the shots and into this multipolar system where you've got multiple power centers.
So it's not just the U.S. running the show anymore.
Exactly. China, Russia, they're stepping up, flexing their muscles. And that creates more competition, more friction. You see it in everything, from countries building up their armies to new alliances forming.
But how does that actually affect us, like in our everyday lives?
Oh, it definitely has real-world impacts. This kind of global stuff, it ripples out, touches everything. Trade, the economy, even migration patterns. Think about it. If those big powers start butting heads, that creates instability, markets get jittery, economies can take a hit.
So it's not just something happening over there. It's something we all need to be paying attention to.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to stay informed, stay engaged. The more you understand what's happening out there, the better decisions you can make for yourself, for your community, for the world.
Couldn't agree more. And that's what makes these deep dives so cool, right? It's about understanding the connections, realizing how complex everything is, but also realizing we're all part of this global story unfolding.
Right. It's a wild story, for
Yep.
sure. But it's our story. So stay curious, stay informed, and never stop asking questions. That's the key.
Love it. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Hope you learned something new, maybe even got a new perspective on things. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions.